Hi, my name's Carly Murphy, and I'm going to be talking about diversity issues within the NCAA and institutional management positions. So, just a little background information on what it looks like right now. The diversity in the management of the NCAA is predominantly run by white men, and a lot of the athletes, especially in football, basketball, track and field, are predominantly black, and they do not have representation within the head coaching staff or even some assistant coaches or athletic directors. And the people in charge of hiring, like the athletic director would be in charge of like hiring a head coach, they are predominantly white men, so they hire predominantly white men, and that is called homogeneous reproduction. It's when you hire someone that looks like you, essentially. So it just makes it really hard to diversify an institution if that is the way of thinking. Media plays a critical role in sports. It has a really large role in the development. And since sports have been male dominated forever, and they still are extremely male dominated today, it's hard for women to progress and have higher roles in sports because of this male dominated sports society. And with media, they have to conform to their audience, so they're going to produce news and like focus on who's watching, and predominantly men are watching sports. So since that hasn't ever really changed, that is what they're gearing towards. And the media typically will sexualize female athletes and journalists, and they just view that as greater than their performance. So it's really hard to gain respect in sports as a woman. And women don't have a lot of opportunities yet in sports management. So Title IX created equal opportunity for athletes, but not female employment. So when you look at an institution in the NCAA, they have to have equal number of athletes, male, female, based on enrollment of the university. So if 60% of the university is female, they need to have around roughly 60% of their athletes be female. So you can see women's sports have progressed an immense amount since they started, but they just once you're done playing the sport, there's not a lot of opportunity for employment. There's a lot of disparities at every level, especially those upper level positions. And an example I saw was men have twice as much opportunity in sport, like say basketball. So a men's basketball Division I coach gets fired. He has opportunity to go coach men's college, Division I, women's. He could go to the women's side. He could coach high school. But 99.9% of men's coaches are men at the Division I level. So a women's coach getting fired on the women's side is not going to have that same opportunity. Race also plays a critical role in sports management. They have very similar disparities to women. So there's a lack of representation for minorities in all of sports management. This relates to the race relation cycle and social distance theory. So this is something we studied a few weeks ago, but the race relation cycle is when there's like a conflict between two racial groups, and basically the losing group or minority group conforms to the majority, and then they just kind of like adhere to their new, like that culture or that way of living. The social distance theory is like Saturday there's a football game and there's a bunch of black athletes and everyone's cheering them on and they love them, they're big fans. But these same people that they cheer on Saturday, they would not go eat dinner with or wouldn't feel comfortable golfing with in a different occasion. So that's where like an athletic director, a head coach, they have to have like those relationships with the community, with boosters, And that's a disparity. They see like that social distance theory where it's like, I respect you as a player, but I don't respect you as an equal. And there's just implicit bias that affects Black people beyond their athletic careers. So when their time on the court's up, like, yeah, maybe they got treated really well as an athlete, but when their career's done, that opportunity is typically not fair and not equal anymore. College football really lacks diversity in head coaches. So the BCA, which is the Black Coaches Association, tried to push for the Rooney Rule, which is it's a rule where they have to interview at least one person of color in every head coaching position. It didn't pass, but I think that they're like pushing more forward with creating more diversity in head football coaches. The NCAA has a diversity and inclusion campaign. They did like a little social media campaign because they just want to have their athletes feel safe and welcome. But it really doesn't focus a lot on the coaching staff. Like, they did make a pledge in 2016 to commit to racial and ethnic diversity and gender equity in hiring, but the statistics do not line up. They do a college sport racial and gender report card every year, and in 2018 they received a C+. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and policy needs to be changed. The NCAA needs to get more involved in this process. So like I mentioned earlier, there's the Rooney Rule that could be implemented. There's the Eddie Robinson Rule and the Judy Sweet Rule, and these are another similar situation where they try to create more gender and diverse spaces in the employment field for coaches and athletic directors. But these institutions advocate for social progress. Like, their higher level education, that's what we're here for, like, move barriers, push that social progress. But you don't see it happening within the institutions themselves. So I think it really just takes putting the right people in charge, and it's going to take time, it's going to be slow, but that is the next step that needs to happen in this society for the NCAA to change, for there to be representation for these athletes to see people that look like them, that have great opportunities and powerful positions in sports, so they feel represented when they are playing for this institution.